Hello, welcome back to the Crimisphere, where we discuss crime and criminal behavior. If you want to support the channel and enjoy this type of content, the best way to support is to like the video and subscribe. Many thanks to returning subscribers. I appreciate you all. And for those who are new, I hope you enjoy the video and will consider subscribing. Now let's get started. When a woman is pregnant, she has no idea what she is growing inside of her womb. She has no idea if the child that will come brings forth good in this world or evil. Today's case is one that is reminiscent of the story of Cain and Abel, where one brother kills the other. In this story, a brother kills his sister, her unborn child, and his sister's husband. On Monday, September 4th, 2023, it was Labor Day, and Cynthia Ivy asked her daughter to drop off a stroller for one of her grandchildren. Her daughter, Mercedes Iverson-Carter, and son-in-law, Norbert Carter III, showed up at Stafford Park in Maple Heights. Maple Heights is a city inside of Cuyahoga County, which is located in Cleveland, Ohio. The tragic violence that would take out an entire family was captured on surveillance video. Let's take a look at the video played in court just before the shooter was sentenced.
We'll wait. Ms. Bale, Mr. Ty, any issues? Are we okay here? Or do you need a moment?
We're okay.
All right. Thank you.
Judge, if you look at State's Exhibit 1, the individual in the orange shirt, that's the defendant, here kind of at the front of the screen. And this white vehicle up here is where the defendant's mom and his two of their younger children. This vehicle here is where Mercedes, Jameer, and Norbert were.
Could you pause it a moment? I'm familiar with the park. Is the park on the right or the left of the screen?
So, and you'll see as the video goes on, Your Honor, that the park is, as I am facing it and you're facing the screen, it's to the left.
And then the main street would then be off to the right.
Yes, that is correct.
All right. Thank you.
Mercedes is backing out of her parking spot and the defendant is approaching her vehicle. He's banging out in front of the hood and she tries again to exit the park. And this is all after everyone left, after the defendant was trying to leave, after the defendant started an argument with the parties. You'll see Mercedes' vehicle go off screen now, and their mother's vehicle also goes off screen. And the defendant continues off screen to follow those vehicles, Your Honor.
The mother is the name.
Cynthia Ivy.
Okay, thank you.
And now, off camera is when the defendant shoots at the vehicle, shooting his son, and also shooting Mercedes. Here now, Your Honor, in the center kind of aisle where we just saw that car, you see Norbert Carter. He's coming, running from the defendant. He's between the vehicles. He has a phone. He's trying to get some help for his wife.
Pointing out to me now.
He's right here, Judge, right in front of this white vehicle. I see the individual on the phone. And now you'll see Norbert start running. Here comes the defendant, chasing after him. He's got a gun in his hand. And Judge, I'm going to pause this right here. You see Norbert coming up into the area of the park. And as I included in my sentencing memorandum, as many of the individuals that have addressed the court noted, there's a large church picnic going on in the park at the time. So Norbert, when you look here, his options are a little bit limited. Straight ahead is a whole group of people that are here for the church picnic. You'll note that to the right in the video are two bouncy houses that are for kids, kids are playing in. And then here to the left, this red building, those are restrooms. And Norbert runs to the left here, the defendant chases him, and he chases him into the restroom. At this point, this is where the defendant is shooting Norbert, and he shot a total of 12 times around. Here comes the defendant walking out of the restroom, and then he proceeds to retreat through the parking lot. And he was apprehended a short distance from the park by the Maple Heights Police Department. That's the end of State's Exhibit 1, Judge.
Most of the graphic elements in this story happened off camera. However, we do not need to see the shooting or hear the gunshots to imagine how terrifying this had to be for those who witnessed this crime, and most of all for the victims that were shot or killed. That Labor Day weekend, Cynthia Ivey had her grandchildren at a picnic in the park. She called Mercedes to bring a stroller for one of the grands. I have no idea how Jason Iverson, Cynthia's son, found out Mercedes was coming to the park at the time. But his mother said in news interviews that out of nowhere, Jason became angry as soon as he saw Mercedes and her husband. You could see in the video that the parking lot was full at that park, and lots of people are seen standing near and around the playground and pavilion areas where we also saw a children's bounce house. Keep in mind, this was a church event. I can only imagine how embarrassing and quick the vibe changed when Jason allegedly started arguing and physically fighting with the couple. To de-escalate the situation, we see vehicles driven by Cynthia Ivey and Mercedes Iverson-Carter drive to the right, which is the direction of an exit from the park. Jason jumps in front of Mercedes' vehicle, appearing to try to stop her from leaving. Unfortunately, we have no idea what is being said or why he wanted to stop her from leaving. Off camera, we are told by prosecuting attorney Kristen Carcutt that Jason Iverson fired his weapon, striking Mercedes Iverson-Carter and grazing the face of his 13-year-old son, Jameer Iverson, who was in the back seat at the time of the shooting. Norbert Carter III, Mercedes' husband, exited the vehicle and ran towards the pavilion area. The video shows Norbert calling for help while also fleeing from Jason, who was running to catch up with him. Norbert ran into a restroom structure where prosecutor Carcutt said he fired his weapon 12 times. I saw a fair-complexioned man in the video that was shirtless, threw his phone to the ground in what I think was frustration with Jason shooting Norbert. I have no idea what the relationship was. Was that a family member, a friend? What? I'm curious, aren't you? Who was that guy, and did he have anything to do with Jason being there that day? In one interview, Cynthia said Jason was normal and even greeted and hugged some people at the park prior to seeing his sister and her husband. Let's continue. I want to point out some things and provide my thoughts on this story. When I looked up this case on the court docket, I found that Jason Iverson is 5 feet 4 inches tall. He's a little man. I could not help wondering if he has some kind of Napoleon complex or small man syndrome type issues going on. He brazenly ran in broad daylight in a red shirt of all things with a gun in his hand in front of a park full of witnesses to commit these crimes. It is nothing short of crazy. Not crazy like you are not responsible for your actions, but crazy evil. It also stood out to me that Mercedes initially stops when Jason jumps in front of her car. I feel like she told him to move, but when he did not, she used the car to force him out of her way. And I don't blame her. In fact, after the violence that happened after this moment, I wish she had run him clear over with her vehicle. Hindsight is always 20/20 though. But she showed some semblance of mercy, which says a lot about her and her feelings for her little brother. These two are close in age, as close as humanly possible, I think, knowing it takes 9 months for a child to incubate. At the time, Mercedes was 30 years old and 7.5 months pregnant with her first child, baby Ava. Norbert Carter III was 31 years old. It blows my mind that he shot a 7.5 month pregnant woman, a woman that is also his own flesh and blood, his sister. That is a factor in this story that takes this violence to another level. I mean, what can you be that angry about? I had to do some digging to find out what I believe, in my conspiracy theory, caused Jason to flip his wig and turn homicidal. Now, I am not justifying his actions because I do not feel like this was worthy of the violence he committed that day, but I do believe this is what triggered the explosion of violence that occurred that day. In an article by Corey Schaefer, a reporter for Cleveland.com, he wrote, prosecutors wrote in court records that the catalyst for the September 4 shooting actually came months earlier. Iverson's son called Mercedes Iverson at 2 a.m. on May 26, 2023, and said his father and his father's girlfriend were fighting. The boy asked his aunt to come pick him up and his siblings because he did not feel safe, prosecutors wrote. Mercedes Iverson picked up the children and took them to her house in Parma. Jason Iverson demanded that his sister return the children to him, and he eventually called Parma police to try to get them back. Police called the children's mother, who told them she wanted Mercedes Iverson to keep the children for their own safety, prosecutors wrote. The judge mentioned this briefly to fill in the tragic gap missing from the story. During victim impact statements from family members, more than one asked why Jason did it. 2 families were affected by Jason's actions that day, and one entire family was annihilated. That same article by Schaefer said Jameer, which is Jason's son, was grazed in the lip by the same bullet that ended up striking Mercedes in the back of the neck, which explains the graphic reference made in court by Demetra Hereford, the mother of Jason's 3 children. Demetra spoke on behalf of her children. All 3 of her and Jason's children witnessed this violence. 2 of the children, 10-year-old Jason Jr. and 8-year-old Jalen, were in the same vehicle as Cynthia Ivy. She described how Jameer heard his aunt choking to death on her own blood and saw her bleed out. I cried listening to them because this is such a vile way to die. And she did not die immediately. Mercedes was later pronounced dead at a hospital. I believe Norbert was unalived immediately. I'm not sure if I am making clear the family relationships here, but Cynthia Ivy is the mother of both Mercedes and Jason, and the children are all her grandchildren. So Demetra told the judge how her children blamed themselves for their father's behavior that day. She did not go into detail, but I just told you how the older child, Jameer, called their aunt and uncle to come get them away from the domestic situation happening between their father and his girlfriend. I wonder who that girlfriend was. I wonder if she's sticking beside him, so to speak. I hope not. Anyway, the children clearly have PTSD. They were afraid Jason would get them. And the poor mom had to sleep beside them for them to fall asleep. What a terribly selfish thing to put your children through, and his ex-wife, who is now left to worry if her children will suffer lasting effects from this and from losing their father entirely. It sounds like he was in their lives prior to completely losing his SHIT that day. The judge said during sentencing that Jason clearly was stewing and brooding over this and allowed himself to get to that point. I agree, but I think there's more to it than that. And I'll get into that in a moment. They classified this as an ongoing family feud, which it totally is, but it's terrible. The crime Mercedes and Norbert committed was coming to the rescue of their nephews during a domestic violence incident. Now, of course, that's tongue in cheek because that's obviously not a crime, but that's all they did as far as we know. This is the reason I believe Jason lost it. We hear in court how Norbert is the man. He's family oriented and sounds like he's generous, loved the heck out of Mercedes, and a guy others felt they could really count on. We learned how Norbert was there for Mercedes, her mother Cynthia, and even Jason. So when I did a little digging, I found that Jason and Demetra divorced in 2018, which was about 5 years prior to the shooting. So Jason's attempt at having his own family failed. Now we have Mercedes and Norbert, who went by Trey. I believe I learned they dated for 6 years and were married for a year when they were killed. They were technically still newlyweds. We heard in court from a cousin, Brianna Williams, that wherever you saw Mercedes, you also saw Norbert. So perhaps Jason was jealous of his sister and her man. I think that's plausible, but I also believe Jason lost it because he held a vendetta against women. His wife divorced him on January 17, 2018, and now his sister and this upstanding husband of hers is getting cool points with his children. So much so that the children called them in their time of need. It stood out when I heard Jameer, the living 13-year-old son of Jason, also a victim, call his father Jason. That said a lot about where he's at. And I get it. I think Jason was jealous that Norbert was taking over a position he desired to be in his family. Now, this is pure speculation and theory because I don't know these people. I am putting it together based off of what is available to us publicly. And I do not envy the position Cynthia Ivy, their mother, has been put in by her son. I'm sure she loves both of her children and, as she said, her son-in-law and grandchild too. However, I lost a little respect for her when she tried to play in the face of the judge and acted like she didn't know her son was sick in the head. No, he may not have shot anyone before this incident, but he clearly was violent and or explosive. In the divorce decree, we find that a restraining order was requested to be dismissed or dissolved with the divorce decree. And there was the May 26th of 2023 incident with his girlfriend that was so bad that the children asked to be picked up because they did not feel safe. During the sentencing, when the judge spoke about mitigating factors, there were some submitted for consideration for the sentencing. He said psychologists found that Jason Iverson has anxiety disorder, unspecified, depressive disorder, unspecified. I couldn't hear or understand him at times when he was reading this, but I think I heard him say bipolar disorder. And I, without a doubt, heard him say Jason was diagnosed in 2009 with psychotic disorder, unspecified. And the current doctor they had review all of this also agreed with the findings. So he's unwell mentally. I mean, we know that by his actions, but the time to get help was before he picked up a gun and fired it countless times, killing 3 people. Let's just sit with that for a moment. If you watch my previous video, Christopher Dorner also had severe depression. These people should not have weapons. How many of these incidents have to happen before we take heed and change how we do things? But I digress.
Will it be Mr. Hilo or Mr. Ty?
Your Honor, may it please the court.
Yes.
Before we make comments on behalf of Mr. Iverson, we would ask, it comes to our attention that Ms. Ivy would like to speak to the court in relation to Mercedes,
Yes.
as well as this. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Cynthia Ivey, I-V-E-Y.
Yes, Ms. Ivey.
I find myself in the unenviable position of being on both sides of the fence. I'm sorry for the pain that the Carters and the Turners are going through. And I'm sorry for what my family is going through. But my family loved Norb. Mercedes and Norb were the best looking couple. And they were looking forward to having their first child. I have no doubt that they would have been good parents because they were parents to everybody else's kids. Norb was thrilled to be a girl dad. He was looking forward to that so much. And I have no doubt that Ava would have had him wrapped around her little finger.
Was the baby named?
Ava. I never get a chance to hold her, watch her grow up. She would have been my 6th grandchild.
And how would she have spelled her name?
A-V-A.
A-V-A?
A-V-A.
And that she would have been your 6th grandchild?
Yes. I find it hard to believe what happened that day. I actually didn't recognize my son and what was going on. I have the advantage of knowing Jason prior to that day. He was never a bad kid. He didn't get in trouble in school for the most part. He wasn't a criminal. And he wasn't a deadbeat dad. He took care of his kids, and he always had a job. So I can't imagine what stressors took over him that day that made him do what he did. But he's not a career criminal. And I know everybody finds it hard to believe given what happened, but I knew my son. And something had to have happened to trigger his emotions that day. I don't know what it was, but it was devastating. My heart hurts all the time because I don't have my daughter or my son-in-law or my grandchild, and I don't have my son. I know there's a consequence to be paid. I don't know what that's going to be, but that's not what I envisioned for my kids. This is not what I envisioned for my kids, and it hurts. At the end of the day, I love all my kids unconditionally. And despite what happened, I still love my son. He is my only biological son, and I love him. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Ivey. Before you leave, Ms. Ivey, I can't imagine the depth I appreciate everyone who's spoken already, and I appreciate your words as well. Thank you very, very much.
Let's go back to Mama Ivy. I wish she had just stayed out of it. If your son got himself into this mess, let him get himself out of it. I would have respected her more if she had simply left it to the courts, because she cannot be asked to choose between her two children. However, look at those damn lawyers. Did you see when they both turned to her like, come on, mama, help your son? I feel like she was pressured into testifying. I mean, those two men surrounded her at the lectern. Dang, that is intimidating. Her homicidal son may or may not get out in this country. She did not know what the judge would give him. He is definitely the type that would have come for her if he ever got out of prison. But it honestly irked the hell out of me when Jason Iverson, with his dry ass face, where were the tears, sir? When he turned for his mother to speak on his behalf like he was in trouble with the principal in school, I was pissed. If you read the comments under many of those types of videos, racist people usually will often comment on how these types of mothers always say he was a good boy. And it is ridiculous to continuously hear such nonsense when it clearly is out of place from what landed that individual before a judge. Girl, we don't care about his Valentine's Day cards in elementary school. It's too late. What's that song by Carole King? It's too late, baby. Oh, it's too late. It's definitely too late for mom to come save you from consequences of your actions. So while I understood why she felt compelled to speak on his behalf, I can only sympathize with Norbert's family and how that would have pissed me off so bad and even ripped off a scab that her son caused. I don't blame Cynthia for anything except standing in for him. It's okay to have strong and healthy boundaries, which brings me to Mrs. Ivy saying she has unconditional love for her son or children, whatever she said. Love should be conditioned. Imagine someone slaps you in the face, stabs you, shoots your dog, steals from your mother, and raped your son. If you say you still love that person, you are the problem. You are the one that is insane at that point. So seek help. But stop saying that. In my beliefs, we are told to be just. Meaning, stand up for justice, even if it's against yourself, your mother, your father, or your own child. It's a high bar. I want everyone that hears my voice to stop repeating this nonsense right now. Everything in this world has consequences in order. Just because you don't understand it does not mean it does not exist. We see no empirical or metaphysical signs that this world is free from order and consequence. I am a believer. So some may fail to understand that if you are a person that believes in God and the day of judgment, you should also understand that actions have consequences. This is a fact for believers. Telling your children you love them unconditionally is like telling them to believe in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. It is a lie. Instead, teach them early about consequences and how all actions have them. Teach them compassion, mercy, emotional intelligence, how to constructively manage emotions, especially anger. Instruct your sons and daughters to fear their anger. I say that because that one emotion can destroy your life. Finally, I believe all parents should start as early as possible teaching their children about healthy boundaries, cause and effect, and most importantly about how we are eternal beings having a human experience. I will stop at that, but I feel sorry for people who go on believing in this man-made delusion where we believe we can do things without consequences. It does not help the individual, families, or communities. This is teaching them social responsibility. To continue with my theory on Jason having a history of violence and anger or anger management issues, I found it interesting and very telling that no one stopped to console him or attempt to speak to him directly about what he was mad about that day. I am not sure he would have been open to use his words, but I wish our community had more de-escalation and conflict resolution tools. I learned in college how our community is one of the most undertreated mental health communities in the nation. We go through so much and really need the help, but it is often either not available, too expensive, or people hold stigmas that make it difficult to seek treatment. Ideally, it would have been helpful if a third party had intervened and arranged a mediation between the two parties. Imagine if Jason was given space to say, sis, it made me feel blah, blah, blah when you and Norbert came to and took my children from me. Mercedes would have said, Jason, look, I love you, and your anger is currently out of control. I really want to support you and the children. And in that moment, I only wanted the children not to witness or see you like that. I love you all. We need more tools, y'all. We need the language required to de-escalate a stressed out population that honestly, I believe, have a generalized PTSD or maybe unspecified PTSD. Yeah, we need to normalize gentle language in our community and encouraging our people to address mental health challenges and seek treatment. That should have happened before this moment, though. But when I watched his mother and sister's vehicle drive past him, I thought about how that may have triggered some emotional abandonment issues and how he may have felt out of control. That's not their fault, but it came to my thoughts watching that moment. What do you think? This brings us to the part where we must address guns. Guns are too readily available. Did you guys hear the judge? He told us this man is mentally unwell. Who gave him a firearm? I am not naive. I know people can get guns off the streets, but that's part of the problem. Now, hear me out. I was thinking about this. Now, what if we made all gun ownership one that must be tied to a national registry and a gun bank? Ghost guns or illegal guns must come with an automatic life without parole. And any crime committed with a gun is automatically eligible for capital punishment. No guns should be allowed inside individual residences. If a person, after presentation of evidence, is the aggressor in a restraining order or protection order case, they can never again legally have a firearm. Firearms should not be birthrights. Your forefathers got it wrong. Admit it, America. Okay, in my new world, you would have to check your guns out of the gun bank for hunting, then check them back in for safe holding. If one is not returned or late returns, you lose your registration and ability to use one, or suspended for a period of time until they fall in line with the new rules. That could have such a huge impact on the number of murders in this country every year. It could restore a sense of safety and peace that honestly is non-existent today. That would stop capitalist institutions like the NRA from using your fear and feeding your delusions of being Arnold Schwarzenegger and Commando. Statistics do not back the idea that guns in homes make the home or the homeowner safer. Please come on in the river of reality. The water is fine. The reason I mentioned gentle language is that I suspect foul words were exchanged that day during the boiling phase of this family feud. My spidey senses are saying Mercedes, like most women, especially in sibling rivalries, may have used some slick language. She admitted in one of their podcasts to struggling with this. Many of us ladies are known to have legendary verbal altercations where we can deliver a mortal combat like tongue lashing. Sure, they say sticks and stones, but that's just another lie we tell children. Words have gotten many a people unalived. Now let's start having more honest dialogue because it may save lives.
Female screaming, looks like somebody was shot in the face. Stand by for further.
A tragic scene at Stafford Park in Maple Heights Monday afternoon.
It didn't look good. It really didn't look good. There was blood everywhere.
Police say a pregnant woman, her husband, and their unborn child all shot to death by the woman's brother. A 13-year-old boy was also grazed by a bullet, but he's expected to be okay.
This was a long-going feud. He was targeting these specific people. It was not just a random event. Unfortunately, it became public today because he happened to find these people here.
Maple Heights Police Chief Todd Hansen says there was a large party in the park and a fight started. He says the 30-year-old woman and her 31-year-old husband tried to leave. Then her 29-year-old brother shot her at the car. The husband ran off towards the pavilion. His brother-in-law chased him and shot him to death near the bathrooms, then tried to run away, but police caught him.
The people that were here were really great and did an excellent job of, pointing officers in the right direction as to who the people might be, and they were able to pick them up and get them right away.
Now, as a family is left mourning the loss of 3, their community is on edge.
It ain't just the city of Maple Heights. It's everywhere, all over Cleveland, period. And we got to be better. All us as people got to be better. Guns and all this stuff is just not where it's at. Killing people, innocent people, for no reason. It's just not making no sense. Now, a mother that lost her life and an unborn child that didn't even have a chance at life yet. That's real sad. That's real sad.
Personally, I think Jason should have gotten the death penalty. However, I have to yield to what he received, which was 3 counts of life without parole, because the death penalty has not been applied equitably in this country. Statistics show that Black and brown people notoriously are given such extreme sentences when similar crimes by white people are given prison sentences. So until we get past the racism and focus on true and equal justice for all, I have to leave it here. But I personally believe in the death penalty and the punishment prescribed by God, which is a life for a life. And before you run to the comments to speak disrespectfully about whether or not scripture is real or God exists, go to school. If you take a criminology class, like I have, you will learn that a vast majority of the laws you live under are rooted in a religious penal code given to us by God through prophets. Do your research.
I've watched this video probably dozens of times since it was provided to me for the handling this case. And the question that was asked of me a lot was, why did Norbert run to the left? His family, his budding family in his own life was wiped out by the defendant. There's no legacy going forward for Norbert and Mercedes and their unborn child. But perhaps, and I don't know if this will offer his family any comfort, but the way I see this video, Judge, is that Norbert was a hero that day. If he ran straight into that park and the defendant followed him, how many more people would have gotten hit by a stray bullet? If he ran to the right where those bouncy houses are, would we be here with dead or maimed additional children? He ran to the left, he kind of with no way out, and he probably saved lives that day. And so while he may not have any future familial legacy, maybe this will be his legacy, is that he died saving other people in that park after what he saw the defendant do to his own son and to his wife.
We saw Norbert run from Jason David Iverson in the video. Yes, I'm using his full government name. For some reason, America is obsessed with a good hero story. You heard the prosecutor talking, right? On what she imagined happened that day. It is so unrealistic and fictional. The prosecutor says she believes Norb ran to the restrooms because the bounce house with the kids was to his right and a large gathering of people from the church event. But I have an unpopular opinion. I don't agree. I think Trey, aka Norb, ran for his life in fear, like any human being would, if the first attempt on their life was missed or spoiled. We should not have to be brave, legendary, or heroes for our lives to be valued. He was scared and he ran. Guns are scary as hell. Let's normalize the truth. He was not a hero. He was a scared victim, and there's nothing wrong with being that. He ran to a structure that he probably hoped had a door that he could lock and barricade himself behind to get police there before Jason could kill him. Unfortunately, that was not the outcome. The truth is, I'm embarrassed that in America, in this Crimisphere, people can kill 3 people and still live. You can be unalived on video in HD, and the best you will get of justice is for that person to live to appeal his sentence. Do you feel safe? Because I don't. Yeah, that's exactly what happened only 1 month after he was sentenced. On May 13th, 2024, Jason Iverson filed an appeal with the court. How are you able to plead guilty, then appeal the punishment? I have lived here too long to be shocked anymore. And I want to say I really like this judge that presided over the sentencing phase. Judge Richard Bell was so compassionate with the victims. He spoke gently and with thoughtfulness that felt fair and even-handed. I have listened to a lot of these court proceedings, and he is a standout judge from others. I don't know his record, so I'm not referring to that part. But in the video that I linked in the description, when he spoke to people, it was like a type of humanity in how he spoke to them. It was gentle. He was trying to give them their chance to make their statement without, you know how people get emotional sometimes, they can't do what they set out to do, which is to speak, clear and to the judge. I think that he allowed them and was patient with them enough that it was encouraging them to get out whatever they wanted him to hear. And he was letting it be known that he heard them when he sentenced Jason Iverson. And I don't know, something about it, it just felt very compassionate. And with the trauma that these people have suffered, it was just right on time. I really like this judge. He was just what these families needed, and he did not fall for the excuses. I think his sentence was right on point with what Jason did. I cried listening to Jason's son, Jameer, talk about how this has affected him and how he blamed himself and is trying to hold his family together and how he was so excited to be attending that event. He quoted a lyric of a song he felt described that day when he said, "It went from a dream to a nightmare." Kids should not have to go through this.
My name is Jameer Iverson. Hi, Your Honor. My name is Jameer Iverson, J-A-M-E-R-E, last name Iverson, I-V-E-R-S-O-N.
Okay, Mr. Iverson, thank you for speaking here. And I ask you to keep your voice up so I can hear it.
Yes.
Okay? Go ahead, you can do this.
This is harder than I thought. After everything happened and everything, I was listening to a song. It's called "I Know" by Polo G, and it was
I cannot hear you.
It was
a little bit closer. Okay. That's okay. You know, it's nice to be soft-spoken. It's a good trait. And it's hard. But pretend I'm far away from you. I need you to use like a loud voice like I'm using with you. And I'm doing it purposely. So you were about to tell me about, is it a poem that you were reading?
It was a song I was listening to.
A song you were listening to, okay.
And there was a lyric in the song that said, "How could I wake up from a dream to a nightmare?" It made me really think about it because it made me really think about that day because just about an hour before everything happened, I had just woke up and I was so excited to be there. And there were so many things, like so many energies that was telling me just don't be there that day, but I ignored all the signs and the energies and everything that was telling me not to, and I was there anyway. And I think what made everything so much worse for me about it is, it's like I was actually there and I saw it all happen right there. It's a thing, and sometimes it's just like, at times after everything first happened, I kind of blame myself a little bit for Mercedes passing because it was so close to being me instead of her. And for a little while, I really blamed myself for moving my head and missing that. But afterwards, I really came to terms with the fact that it wasn't meant to be me, because now I get to sit here and help uplift everybody from the situation. I feel like I was given a gift to be able to uplift everybody else around me, including myself, and I'm happy that I'm able to do so. Because if I wasn't, I'm not sure how anybody in my family would have been able to get through this. There's just so many things that I think about after. It's just like it hits me so hard, because it was like they just looking at their smiles. It was just like it brought such a sense of relief and happiness to me. And now that I can't see that face to face no more, I can't get on a FaceTime call with them and tell them about how I'm doing at school no more, or tell them about something new going on that I was really excited about, or just to be able to get that motivation from them anymore. It's just, I don't know how I deal with it every day. I don't. It was more times I could count where I came over my aunt Mercedes' house crying because of something that was going on, and her and Norbert just helped me through it with such ease. And now I can't have that no more. It's like I can't even sometimes, like I can't even sleep right. There's times I try to go to sleep and all I see is Jason in my dreams, and it's like it'd be so weird, because it'd be like everyone in the dream, it's like nothing ever happened, but I know what happened. And it's just like waking up from that dream hurt, because just seeing everybody act like nothing happened and seeing them right there smiling like that, being happy, I can't deal with that. I told myself a little while ago that I can't sit here and hate you for the rest of my life. That's too much to weigh upon myself. But I also know I can't sit here and forgive you. So I'm in a place between the two. And will I ever heal from this event? Probably not. There was so many times I thought I was okay from it, but then I sit down and really think about it and reimagine the situation, and it just breaks me down again and again. No pain that I've ever felt could compare to this one. Seeing two people that I love the most, and one person that I know I would have loved with all my heart, just go like that right in front of my eyes. There was nothing I could have did about it. And I think me not being able to do anything about it is one of the parts that hurt the most. I'm gonna say right now, I hope whatever God, Lord, or whatever that you believe in or start to believe in forgives you for the things you've done. And good luck wherever life takes you next. That's all.
It's also worth mentioning that Jason Iverson initially tried to plead not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, come on, silly rabbit. Tricks are for kids. You can tell Jason is a person that has issues with accountability. He has no problem-solving skills, to say the least, and he has anger management issues or no regulation of his emotions, which is not an excuse, because we can teach ourselves these skills if we try. Instead of buying a weapon, buy some therapy. Buy a book to learn about emotional intelligence or how to navigate whatever you're going through. So Jason is exactly where he put himself. Although I personally believe that a fair sentence would have resulted in Jason Iverson immediately pushing up daisies. Some people, however, are under the twisted delusion that that's the easy way out. But who told you that? Why do you think they exhaust their appeals when they're on death row? They don't want to die. They don't want to happen to themselves what they did to someone else. And I think that we should take just that thing away because they earned it. We have even better technology now than we did years ago when we used the death penalty more often. So catching the right person is more likely now with all this technology. And yet in our society, we see less punishment. But we know why that is, because there's money in these privately ran prisons. So capitalism comes before safety in this country, which I personally think is twisted. Because my mind is overactive, I couldn't help wondering if Norbert's family ever had hesitations about marrying into into the Iverson family. I don't know. I was just wondering. At one point, Cynthia Ivey said how he's a good father and always works. Hold up, ma'am. Your Honor, we need a sidebar to discuss the low expectations Miss Ivey holds. Ma'am, good fathers don't do this. I know her mind is trying to process and catch up to what has happened, but a good father he is not. He allowed himself to become homicidal. Now, one day, an autopsy may reveal that he has real defects to his brain. But until then, the amount of people he damaged, he should have just offed himself. Just leave Earth, Jason. This is beyond evil. It's wicked as it gets. And I am not beating up on Miss Ivey because she was Jason Iverson's mother. Where is Jason Iverson's father in all of this? Where is the father? And I would bet the bank that he was not present in Jason's life, or perhaps he may have learned some survival skills that doesn't require a gun. And this is what we get as a result. I felt especially, something for Antoinette Turner, Norbert's mother, because she said Jason's actions changed her. And more than once, she boldly said, "I hate you." Now, to me, that's righteous anger. It's twisted rhetoric that one should turn the other cheek when it comes to people who are agents of evil. So I congratulate her that she spoke her truth. Jason needed to hear it and face it. If someone held him accountable more before this, he may have learned consequences and thought before he pulled the trigger on his own family, which included an unborn child. By his sister being 7.5 months pregnant, he saw her belly. She was in a very vulnerable state, being that she was pregnant, and he gunned her down anyway. So I do not see Jason as human. I agree with, I believe it was the Grandma Turner, that said that he's a monster. To me, he's a spawn from hell in a human body. So I see no point in pulling these painful cases up from the ashes of the past if it doesn't serve a greater purpose today. And I left my thoughts on what I think would be some of the things that we can actually do about it to make society better for children, safer for adults, everybody, and usher in a better understanding of how interconnected we all are through our actions, inactions, institutions, policies, and civic duties. Because after all, we are one human family. If you made it to this point in the video, you should stay. Come on and check out the Comments Café. Mama's demeanor tells me everything I need to know. Her daughter probably bailed her brother out of trouble more times than anyone could count. In my community, mothers raise their daughters and love their sons. Then they grow up entitled, lazy, and emotionally underdeveloped, and expects everyone to coddle them and fix their problems like their mama did. Pathetic. The son is immature and evil. Sister stopped bailing him out, didn't want to accept responsibility for his own life. It's everybody else's fault but his. Throw the key away. This dude deserves life without parole. See what happens when you take out your anger on your cellmate. If my pregnant daughter and her husband were murdered by my son, I would not be sitting here talking about it this calmly. I would probably be in the hospital sedated. The way she's talking about it, it's like he just lost his temper and yelled at someone. He murdered 3 people. This mom is holding up so well, I wouldn't even be able to do an interview. She's obviously protecting her son. This story has gaps. This is terrible. Something's not right with how calm this mother is. This sad. I can also tell the mother was an enabler. She probably made the sister enable her rotten brother as well. When the mother stated Mercedes would bail him out of trouble, she was meaning jail. I grew up around toxic family members. I know the signs. I can almost guarantee the mother never held her son accountable, never told him he was wrong or chastised him for his mistakes. This mom knows more, but family ties are something outsiders won't even begin to know. We're not getting the meat of the story. Bless the victims. What a horrible story. I can tell by the way this mother speaks about this, she lost control of this man boy a long time ago. Just another man boy who can't handle his emotions like a man. My deepest condolences go out to this poor mother and all others who loved these two. He looks crazy AF. That mother knows what was going on with her demonic son. Doesn't even look like she's grieving. If one of my children kills the other one, I'm done with the killer. Don't make me choose. That's a tough place to be in for the mom of these kids. She's too calm. Sounds like she at some point enabled his weird behavior. Why did both of your kids know you were at the park? If you know one is jealous of the other, keep them apart. A long-standing dispute leads to a man who shoots and kills his sister, her unborn child, and her husband in a public park. Now that's an extreme sibling rivalry that I will never understand. Tragic and sickening. I hope the brother rots under the prison. Shake my head. Your family can be your worst enemy.
I usually don't like to share stuff like this, but I personally own a gun myself. And you don't see me pulling it out willy-nilly every time I'm fucking popping off at somebody, and y'all know I'm a piece of work, and y'all know I will pop off in a second, but you don't see me pulling the strap. Like, literally, for what? For what? It's not worth it. It's not worth it at all. Whatever I'm mad about at that second, I'm gonna get the fuck over it. Like, literally. It's not worth me pulling out a gun and losing my life, losing my freedom, causing somebody else to lose their family member, their parent, whatever the fuck. Y'all doing too much. Doing way too much. Some of y'all need to sit down and think about what it is y'all doing before y'all doing it. Because some of y'all out here thinking y'all grown and y'all ain't. Because when shit hit the fan, then y'all out here with your holding your fucking dick in your hand looking dumb.